Oh, well, I mean, please. I mean, gosh, Hollie, I mean, you're right, but we're going to get there at some point. But gee, yeah, no, look, you're spot on. Now, look, I want to ask you both about the ISIS brides. David, we've spoken about this before because you were the first counter-terrorism minister in New South Wales. And when I first asked you about this on my show last week when it first broke, you were unconvinced by Labor's claims that they were not involved in this repatriation. Now, Tony Burke, of course, has finally admitted that they gave them passports and DNA checks. Are you convinced that this is enough to ensure our safety?
No, not at all. This problem did not sneak up on us. 10 years ago, when I was first made the Minister for Corrections, before I was Counter-Terrorism Minister, we were talking about preparation for returning ISIS brides and how we would block it. We would bring in the protection orders. We would make sure that before they got on a plane and we were convinced that they were de-radicalised, we had to be prepared for any charges that would be laid against them because they had been associated with terrorist organisations. And of course, we wanted to make sure the state was prepared to either incarcerate or continue to provide surveillance. Now, all of that was debated 10 years ago. And I think we've seen some very, very tricky footwork from the Commonwealth over the course of the last week as they realised that they'd been misleading the community. And I'm horrified that the thought that somebody that believed in a cause like ISIS or Hamas or Hezbollah have decided that it's time to come home because it's much nicer and more comfortable in a housing commission house in Melbourne. And I think Australians need to be asking their local member, why is this happening? Where are they going? And what continued surveillance will ensure the safety of our communities? Because the United Kingdom has seen what happens when radicalised people fall off the radar. They're not de-radicalised, and then, of course, they go and continue to commit atrocities.
Look, absolutely. And the thing is that once these women left this country, they betrayed our values when they went and joined the death cult. Now, just because this jihadi romance hasn't quite worked out for them, Hollie, they think, oh, well, we can swan back in, as David said, in Housing Commission in Melbourne, on the taxpayers' dime, of course. But what do you make of how Labor has dealt with this issue this week?
Well, they haven't just betrayed our values, they've actually broken Commonwealth law. There are Commonwealth laws applicable about travelling to a declared zone with regards to terrorist activities, and these people absolutely broke Australian law. So at the very least, they should be being prosecuted via that Commonwealth law. And I have no doubt if any of that law needed to be changed or strengthened, that the Coalition would get behind the Labor government to support that. But of course, that's not what's happening. I do think that the premiers have a role here. I think the premiers need to demand from the Prime Minister knowledge of where these ISIS brides have returned to, and that the communities have the right to know that these people have been placed within their communities. There should, of course, be the protection orders, de-radicalisation and all of those other programs being put in place. But the federal government's really only responsibility when it comes down to it is keeping Australians safe. And we can see now this government that was supposed to be about transparency and honesty with the Australian people is anything but. It is in fact the complete opposite. And in their attempts to appease their own internal left wing, they are actually putting Australians' lives at risk.
Yeah, absolutely. I certainly agree. And I also thought, the fact that Tony Burke has this week backflipped on multiple positions, has lied to the Australian public, and then, finally admits, actually, we did give them passports and we don't know where these people are living. We know absolutely no information. And once again, it's an absolute national security failure on behalf of Labor. Now, look, I thought this next story was quite interesting. Defence has banned further print runs of its Taste of Harmony cookbook. Now, our viewers might remember that this cookbook was produced by the department's Guided Weapons and Explosive Ordnance Group. This is the same group tasked with establishing a $200 billion plus domestic missile manufacturing industry, which is a goal that remains very, very distant. Yet somehow time was found to produce a cookbook on the taxpayers' dime, David. But now Defence have finally banned it. Is it a good call?
Well, I mean, as you can see, I was quite a connoisseur of defence cooking, and I want to put a little bit of, without defending the brass, I will highlight the fact that in the military, whether it be, having powdered eggs in a gun pit or dining in the officers' mess for a formal occasion, food is very, very important. As Napoleon said, an army marches on its stomach. However, the tone of this book, and he wasn't the commander of the catering corps. This was a senior 2 or 3 star that was supposed to be engaged elsewhere. So, and the tone of harmony just doesn't sit right. I think the RSL might have something to say about this as well. It doesn't seem to work well, and I think people will be scratching their heads wondering why a 3-star officer is engaged in harmony cooking. But in the defence of the Australian Army Catering Corps, a shout out to all of our Army cookies. It is culturally an important part of Defence Service life.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't have a problem with being a connoisseur. Like, I don't have any issues with that. My issue, Hollie, is that this particular group's been tasked with this enormous project worth $20 billion. It's running so far behind schedule, but the time has been found to make a cookbook. I don't know. What's your views?
Look, I don't know. Are they attaching copies of the cookbook to the missiles that they're supposed to be developing?
Maybe.
Look, I'm hoping it's been stopped because David Johnson, who's the new Chief of Defence, is an eminently sensible man and an absolutely beautiful person. So I'm hopeful that he's actually the one who's gone, enough of this rubbish, and under him we're going to see a reduction in the woke activities that the ADF was becoming such fervent fans of. But I mean, I've read this story and reread this story and read the story again, and I still cannot figure out who thought this was a good idea, what it was about. I'm with David. I did all my ADF programs when I was in Parliament and loved them, and the importance of feeding our soldiers is absolutely paramount, particularly on the submarines. That's actually probably the highest quality food you will get across the Defence Forces, because clearly they don't have much else going on when they're underneath the surface. Yeah. But yeah, whoever thought this was a good idea is a little bit beyond me.
Yeah, look, I don't think that China is currently out there producing cookbooks. Let's be realistic. China's got other priorities right now. Hollie Hughes, David Elliott, nice to see you both. Have a great weekend. Thanks very much for joining me on the show.